I always tell people that you're more capable than you think you are.
Be original. Don't be like the guy on the radio. Great music will prevail. So I would tell people, make great music. Don't make other people's music. Make your own.
Money don't make me, so I just say, you know what? I just gotta be happy in my life. Build your team. Look around you. Figure out all these parts, because you can't do it all yourself. You're gonna burn out and get tired.
Never burn any bridges. You never know who someone's gonna be.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
Welcome to the Indie Playbook presented by Focus Noise. Ad-free until we sell out. Make sure you subscribe on the podcast app. If you're on Facebook like the rest of the world, facebook.com/the Indie Playbook. And today's episode is really special to me because I have my mentor on. Jamie Adler, who grew up in a rock and roll family. His brother started Guns N' Roses, Steven Adler, and he grew to be a rock and roll manager and agent, and eventually decided to leave rock behind to carve his own niche and got into the world of hip-hop. And for years, he's been working with Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, DJ Quik, and the roster has really grown within this past year as we've been working together. We built a real solid team. And as you can see, Jamie's went through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of incredible stories. He's hung out with rock stars, and I think he sees a lot of clarity as he gets older in his life and is able to process what really matters, which is family and love, and for him, God. And I hope you get a lot out of this because I think there's so many gems. And just listen and absorb it and check it out with my man, Jamie Adler. So let's get back into being kidnapped and dragged across the country. Let's start with that.
Yo, I got about 1,000 stories. Here's a good one. I get a call from some guy. Random dude calls me out of the blue one day, tells me he's the manager for Rolling Stones. He got my number from somebody. He's really, really interested in working with me. He heard I was like this new up-and-coming manager guy out of L.A. And he's going to be in town in a couple of weeks and wanted to see if I have any artists that he could work with. So I was working with my best friend, Brandon Rudley. Rest in peace, Brandon. I want to say this is probably in 96. So I'm 21 years old. And maybe this is actually 95. I was 20. That's all I wanted to do was just win. And here's some guy that manager Rolling Stones coming to town. He wants to meet with me and my artist. He had Village Recorders in Santa Monica on lockdown for a month. And he says, come meet with me over at Village and we'll record. And we showed up to the studio and we couldn't believe it. We're at Village Recorders. We're with the manager of the Rolling Stones. He says he asked Brandon to go in the studio and play a couple songs for him. So Brandon got out of his acoustic guitar and just started jamming out. Brandon was really, really talented, and the guy immediately says, I want to sign you. I want to make you guys famous. So to make a long story short, we were in Village for about 2 weeks, recording every day. Steve Riley from LA Guns, he was in there recording, I remember. And we were all recording on this guy's dime. And the next thing you know, he says, hey, I want to take you guys to New York. And we're going to go meet with some labels. We just recorded 4 songs. We have a demo now at Village. He's like, we're going to go to New York, go shop you guys, and go get you a major deal. So next thing you know, we jump on a plane.
This was a band you're managing, right?
This is my best friend. My best friend since I was 12 years old, Brandon Rudley. He was in a band called Excel. He was a guitar player. He actually died on my birthday, August 27, 2000. This is about 3 years. This is 4 or 5 years before he died. And so we get to New York. We got a nice hotel suite. The guy that brought us out there, he takes off, comes back, takes off, comes back. We're there for a couple days. He says, hey, I want to take you guys on a shopping spree. Before we go meet these labels, and it's the dead of winter. He's like, he's like, before we go meet with these labels, I want to take you guys shop and make you look real good. So he takes us to Bergdorf Goodman. Now, Bergdorf Goodman is one of the most exclusive spots in New York City. Clothing,
It's expensive.
Yeah, it's real expensive. Real expensive. So we go in there. Next thing you know, I'm the manager. He tells me, he's like, you're the manager. We need to make you look great. Let's get you fitted for 5 suits. I get fitted for 5 suits. Each one of these suits is $15,000-$20,000. Let's get these jackets. I swear we looked like Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. I mean, we got these fur jackets on. We got those fur hats. I mean, we were like, what the hell? No kidding. It came up to over $300,000 in merchandise that we purchased over there. Over $300,000. He puts down his credit card. We walk away. We're just hanging out. Whatever. We have now remember, I got five or 6 suits fitted, so I didn't walk out with the suits. We walked out with all the jackets, all the nice, clothes. We still walked out of there with a couple $100,000 worth of merchandise. We get back in the car. We go to the hotel, and this whole time I'm talking to my mom, I'm talking to my brother, talking to my friends, and everybody's telling me this guy is full of shit. Just to be careful, I mean, a lot of stuff happened in between this whole stuff. But this whole time, I just wanted to believe that we made it. Like, we hit the big time. So we get back to the hotel room. We got all this. We literally have 6 figures worth of the most amazing fur coats you've ever seen and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there just not feeling right about any of this stuff. And Brand, he's got people drugged. He even had me drugged at one point. I didn't realize he Mickey'd our drink, and that's kind of how we ended up even getting to New York. Like I said, we'll go to New York, but we didn't even really remember how we got there. And so
were you like high during this whole experience, or?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say high, but we were definitely loopy, like for a couple weeks. Not realizing that he's micking our drinks, and we don't really know what's going on. We just know we're with the manager of the Rolling Stones, and this is like a fantasy world, and we're rolling around in limos and eating fancy dinners every night, and I'm bringing my friends around us. Like, this guy's not like trying to be incognito. He's really flashy. So I call my buddy Greg Ehrlich out of New York, who he's been around for a long, long time in my life. And I told him what happened. I said, listen, we just got back from Bergdorf Goodman. We bought over $300,000 of merchandise with the manager of the Rolling Stones credit card. And something just seems fishy. He's like, Jamie, call Bergdorf Goodman right now and let them know your story and tell them to come over and get all that merchandise. Because if you don't, this is going to be on you, and this is this could be a major felony. So I called Bergdorf Goodman. I remember the person I was speaking to over there, and he put me to security. And no kidding, 10-15 minutes later, I had 6 of the tallest, biggest black guys you've ever seen at my door. I mean, these guys look like the biggest ball players you've ever seen, all in the nicest suits, all black suits, 6 guys knocking on my door saying, sir, you called us? And they showed up and they took all the merchandise back. And as they were in the room, the guy showed up, the manager of the Rolling Stones, and he saw what was going on. He says, I'll be right back. And he took off, and he ran, and we never saw the guy again. And it ended up being a complete scam, a complete con, that 6 months later, when he contacted me for the very first time, told me he was the guy from the Rolling Stones and he heard about me, and he wanted to work with me. He was calling me from a mental institution in Louisiana.
Wow.
And he was in a mental institution for about a year, and somehow he found out who I was, because I'm Steven's little brother, and I was breaking in the music industry, and for some reason he felt he wanted to get one over on me and con me.
Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, just to be clear.
Yep, that's my older brother. And this guy, he got us really, really good, man. You know, like we never ended up, nothing ended up legally ever ended up happening to us. We were in New York, not a penny to our name. We're getting kicked out of this hotel now because this was not, this was under his credit card. And I called Greg Ehrlich and I said, dude, thank you so much for saving my ass. Can you come over here and help us? We don't have any money for a flight home. I can't call my mom. I can't call my brother. Brandon can't call his parents because everybody told us, don't trust this guy.
Right.
Don't go there. What are you doing? Do not believe this guy. So now everybody was right. We were completely wrong. We just fell into all the bullshit. And Ehrlich took us out for breakfast. I'll never forget it. He took us out for breakfast. And I got me and Brandon 2 flights home. And to this day, I always say thank you to Greg Ehrlich because he definitely saved our life.
It's crazy because, I mean, I can really relate to being a young person trying to make it in this industry and trying to figure out who's real and who's not. I definitely got scammed a couple times. There was one time when right out of college, I was working for a car lot, just selling cars, trying to make a little money. And there was this guy worked there. His name was something Daniels. So he told me he was Charlie Daniels' brother, and he played drums for the Charlie Daniels band. But he worked at a car lot, and here I am, like, believing him because, you just want to believe that people are being honest. You want to believe that they're real. And I think I ended up giving him, like, $750 for a photo shoot that he said he needed for, like, Carol Lewis or something. At the time, like, he didn't even know Carol Lewis, but I didn't know any names either. So I was just like, okay, here's $750. And then he disappeared on me.
I mean, everybody wants to try to get in where they fit in and think they know somebody or they're that person. I mean, listen, when I was in junior high school, because I had these really blue eyes, and my brother's this big rock star. And to start talking to girls, all these girls would always tell me that I look like Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block. So I used to claim that Joey McIntyre was my cousin. And somehow I had his beeper number. And if they didn't believe me, I would call his beeper number so you could hear him talking. This is Joey McIntyre.
How did you get that?
I don't know how I ended up getting it somehow. But for like 2 years, I used to claim that my cousin, if your brother's in Guns N' Roses, then of course your cousin's going to be in New Kids.
Right.
So
why wouldn't he?
Yeah. So I understand where the McDaniels guy was coming from, except I was being honest. I was being real, except for the McIntyre. It was definitely not my cousin. I definitely did not have blue eyes like he did. But my brother was in Guns N' Roses, and I definitely had no problem bragging about that when I was a kid. When I was 14, I would definitely start off that conversation. Hey, you know who my brother is? My brother's Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses.
Right.
I can't help that. I was freaking 14, 15, 16. I just thought that was cool.
Well, at that age, too, it's all about getting girls. So you're going to use any little leg up you can. But I think there's a big difference between that and preying on someone's dreams and trying to, like, take advantage of them.
Well, how about the irony in this that I was speaking at UCLA class the other night at a music industry class. And someone asked me, they said, well, if your brother was in Guns N' Roses, how did you end up in rap? And here's the irony where when I was a kid, I would always brag. I don't even mean to say brag because I talked to people like back in junior high and high school. I'm like, I used to brag about my brother. Like, no, you were always cool, Jamie. You didn't brag, but I was more like a proud brother, let's say. But so I would always want to talk about my brother. Now, fast forward 25. I'm 25. I'm breaking into the music industry. I'm the youngest agent at a major agency. I was working at this company called the Agency Group, and I'm representing Danzig, Zakk Wylde, Black Label Society, Motorhead. I reunited Whitesnake. I was just immersed in this rock world. And some guy tells me, he says to me one day, he's like, the only reason you made it where you're at right now is because your brother, Guns N' Roses. And I'm like, first of all, my brother's never done anything to benefit my career. If anything, he's been a burden in my career, except for the fact that he was my brother and I look up to him. And it's the same thing if my brother was maybe, if my mother was a doctor or my father was an attorney, maybe I would have been an attorney or a doctor. It's just my brother was this rock star, so I wanted to be in rock and roll. And when this guy said that to me, I knew that it was my hard work and my tenacity and aggressiveness and, that got me to where I was. It had nothing to do with that I made a decision shortly after that to walk away from rock and roll so no one could ever judge me again and walk right into the opposite, which is rap, urban, hip hop. And that's what I went into, because no one really knew my brother or Guns N' Roses in that world, and no one could ever say that to me again.
Right. Well, and you had an interesting story about Bone Thugs and Harmony and creating a vision at a young age that you were going to manage Bone Thugs and Harmony, and that eventually became true. Can you tell that story?
Well, we used to sit around, because I went to Chatsworth High School. I grew up in the Valley. I mean, I got 100 stories like this regarding Bone Thugs, where when I was a kid, we had the same weed dealer that Busy Bone used to go pick up weed over at Long Hair Joey's house. And he had his security guard over at Sprite's house. And he had Busy security guard was Animal, Big A they used to call him. And I've known Animal forever because Sprite, him and Sprite were best friends. And Steve Sprite's like my big brother.
Steve Sprite's right here, by the way.
Sprite's right here. And that's my brother's, my old Steven's best friend, Steve Sprite. So he's always been like my big brother. So whenever Busy Bone was showing up to either Sprite's or Joey's house, they would always call me because I was the biggest Bone fan, the biggest Busy Bone fan. That's all I want to do is smoke with Busy Bone. I swear to God, every single time they called me to come meet Busy Bone, I would drive so fast from Northridge all the way to North Hollywood. Every time I would pull up, and I would see the white limo driving off in the sunset, and I never ever got to meet Busy Bone, and I was so bummed. And this happened countless amount of times. And then Dave Kramer was he lived in Chatsworth, because I'm telling you, we all grew up in like Northridge, Chatsworth, and Bone was living in Chatsworth. And we used to sit around Dave's garage, listen to Bone, smoking weed, and we would drive by Bone's house because we knew where they lived. I think it was like right off of Lassen or something. We would drive over there to try to see these guys, to go inside and smoke with them. They were never home. We never saw the guys, and I never got to meet Bone Thugs. I never got to smoke with them. Whenever they would play a show in Los Angeles, I'd make sure to go to that concert just to watch them. I was a real fan. I was never really a fan of that many people, but I was always a fan of Bone. And I used to sit around and I'd tell my friends, one day I'm going to manage Bone Thugs and Harmony. One day that's going to be my group. And then sure enough, fast forward, not even like a decade later, in 2002, I started working with Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah.
And I've been with these guys for literally over 17 years now.
Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen.
Well,
Ralph
like I
Waldo
say,
and Emerson.
Well, why didn't I say that about Jay-Z? I
don't know, but that's what I'm saying. If you did say that about Jay-Z, would that have happened?
Yeah, why didn't I say that about Dr. Dre? But you know what? Listen,
hey, Bone Thugs is a good act.
Bone Thugs are my top 3 biggest selling rap group of all time. My favorite rap group still to this day. And it's just a blessing in it. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
Right.
And a gift all at the same time. I'm very, very blessed. I feel like I hold a record in this business for hanging on to rap artists longer than any other agent ever. It's crazy. I know how to hold on to my clients.
Well, you mentioned your tenacity. What was the biggest mistake you made while trying to make it in this industry?
I mean, I thought I was perfect. I've never even made a mistake, so I don't make mistakes, Eric.
No mistakes?
No mistakes.
Okay. We can move on from that.
I'm like Donald Trump. I don't make mistakes. I'm perfect. I don't say I'm sorry. Now, what would be my biggest mistake? I don't know. I look back at my life, and I really think I could look at a lot of things that I've made a lot of mistakes in, or I could look at it as those mistakes or those moves that I made is what got me here today. Because I could have done so many things differently, you know. I quit working at the biggest agency when I was like 25, 26 to go independently and start doing this on my own. And I walked away from all that rock stuff. You know, maybe today at 42, I could have been the biggest rock agent. I could have been working at the biggest agency and making salary and having stability. Or I could be who I am today and have my own business independently, you know, not making salary, eating what we kill, being my own boss, you know, living the dream.
Who was your first hip hop act after you left the agency group?
Well, the first rap group, the first artist that I ever worked with in rap was the Candyman.
Knocking Boots.
Ooh, boy, I love you so. Never, ever, ever gonna let you go. Yo, Max, my nephew Max Adler, was selling toner developer in one of those boiler rooms. He calls me up one day, and it's probably like, I'd say it's like 1995 probably. And he's like, hey, and I'm not even really in the music industry, even though ever since I was 14 or 15, I've been booking shows at the Whiskey Roxy, always like doing things and knowing what I was going to end up doing. But Max calls me up one day. He's like, you'll never guess who's working here. I'm like, who? He's like, the Candyman. I'm like, knocking boots? He's like, yeah. I'm like, the Candyman melted your mouth, not in your hand. The Candyman can. I'm like, wow, what the hell is he doing there? He says, you want to talk to him? I'm like, yeah. So he puts him on the phone, and I literally flew to Vegas to go meet with the guy. I thought this was like the biggest shit ever. Like, wow, I want to manage the Candyman. The guy was nominated for an American Music Award maybe 5 years prior to that, you know? So I fly out to Vegas, and I met him, and basically I said, I want to be your manager. He says, come on, go be my manager. And I called up Brian Pereira over at Cleopatra Records, and I said, I got the Candyman. Would you give us a record deal? And the first record deal I ever signed was with Cleopatra and the Candyman. He gave us $5,000 to reissue Knockin' Boots, to like, you know, to remake that record and to do some other original songs. And we turned in a record, you know, that cost us, well, I think actually Candy already had the album done. He had it in the can, so we just had to turn it in. But I commissioned 20%. I took $1,000. Candy took $4,000. And that was my first deal. And then I started booking them shows, and we were doing little tours here and there. And that was my first rap artist that I ever started really working with. That was the beginning. It's crazy. And then when I left the agency group, I just walked out of there with Bone Thugs. That was the only group I left with. It was Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Okay.
And I told them, I said, hey, if I leave this company, will you guys stay with me? They said, yeah, of course, you know. And sure enough, they stayed, you know.
Just going back a little to your relationship with Todd Singerman and how you got the job at the agency group. I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very incredible story. So Todd Singerman, who's still my mentor to this day, he was the manager of Motorhead since 1989, let's say. So he's been their guy forever. And so 1996, I make this decision to leave Arizona where I was living, trying to go to school, be a normal person, go to college, which I think I got like a total of 9 credits over like 2 or 3 years of going to college. I never really went. I told my parents I'm going. They would send me out money to pay for my tuition. I would take that money, go to the casino, and just gamble it all away. I just didn't give a shit. Like, school was not for me. So my brother tells me to come out here in 96, start managing him. Let's put together a band. I'm 21 at the time. He got me a house up in the Hollywood Hills. I'm like, fuck school. I'm out of here. So I came out to LA. It's November now. We're putting together a band. Actually, it was October 96. It was called the Concrete Foundation. It was this like a big convention, like a Polestar convention, but it was a Concrete Foundation, big rock convention that they had in Burbank every year. And I went there. And my sole purpose was to go to the panels and to find a manager that I could work with, that I could, just reach out to. So Singerman's up there on the panel with all these other big rock managers, and somebody says, how do I get a job for you? How do I work with one of you guys? Singerman's like, I'll answer that. He's like, yeah, I'm always looking for someone young, aggressive, hardworking, willing to listen, put in the work, to come work with me. I'm always looking for somebody that, that has that. So I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds just like me. So after the panel's over, I'm waiting on the side for the guy to walk outside. I'm just waiting for him. He finally walks outside, and I go right up to him. I'm like, Todd, my name is Jamie Adler, and that guy that you were just talking about on stage, a hard working, willing to listen, put in the work, da-da-da. I said, dude, that's me. That's me who you're talking about. And then also my brother Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, and how do I start working with you? And because I told him all of that, and the whole brother part, that doesn't hurt at all. He says, give me a call and start building. And I started calling this guy, once a week, and just started building a relationship with him. And he just took me under his wing after that. And he took me under his wing, and I really proved myself to that guy over like the next 3, 4, 5 years. And I started at that time, like during that whole 2, 3, 4, 5 year part, I became an agent while like working with Singerman and managing bands with Todd, but I'd make a living as an agent. And I was representing all these 80s bands. Like I reunited like Warrant and Rat and all that stuff. We were doing Key Club at the time, it was called. And I told Singerman, I said, man, I would love to go work at the agency group, because they had this agent over there named Dave Kirby, and I would always pay attention to this guy. And I'd be like, man, I would love to go work over there. I said, can you get me a job? And Motorhead was at the agency group at the time. And Neil Warnock, the owner of the agency group, that was like his favorite group, was Motorhead. And Singerman concocted this amazing idea and plan that he'll pull Motorhead away from Neil and the agency group and give them to me. And now I was working with this company called Artists Worldwide, this little company that I started called International Artist Group with Chuck Bernal. Chuck left, started Artists Worldwide. I came back and started working with Chuck and Chris, and Singerman says, hey, if you want to work at the agency group, I'm going to pull Motorhead. I'm going to give them to you over at this little itty bitty company that you're at. And if Neil wants Motorhead back, the only way he's going to get him is he's got to bring you back. So he's got to hire you. That's the only way. So sure enough, he gives me Motorhead. It takes Neil a couple weeks to realize that he no longer has Motorhead because he's got so much other shit going on. He's like, what the hell do you mean I lost Motorhead? He's like, yeah, I gave it to Jamie Adler. If you want Motorhead back, I'll give you Motorhead, but you got to bring Jamie Adler in. And sure enough, Neil flew into town, this is maybe like a month later or whatever. We had a meeting, and they offered me a position. And I left Artists Worldwide, and I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. So I had Danzig waiting on me. I had Zakk Wylde, Black Label Society waiting. I had all this shit lined up where when I walked right into the agency group, not only did I walk in there with Motorhead, but I had Zakk Wylde, I had Danzig, I had Coverdale ready to roll. I had all this shit set up. I mean, I was only like 25 years old, and I was already on the pulse. Like, I was thinking 10 steps ahead. At that, it's like I was born for this shit.
How important is that? I mean, it is political. Like, you have to be thinking ahead.
Yeah, but normally, at that age, you don't know what the hell you're doing.
You kind of just go with the flow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I always knew what moves to make way ahead of my time, I think.
So imagine you're Todd Singerman in today's day and age, right? And there's another young kid, a young Jamie Adler coming up to you, but they don't have the connection of saying that they're brothers in a major rock band, and they want to approach you and get your attention to work for you. How do you recommend that they approach, and what would you recommend?
Well, listen, nobody else has that gift that I was handed regarding having your brother as this big superstar, because I was talking to somebody the other day, I don't know any other siblings that are in the music industry that come from like rock royalty. Maybe there's a couple. I don't know. I would love to meet him. I would love to get my own podcast going with some, we call it siblings or something, like, you know, brothers or sisters of rock stars. That'd be kind of dope. But so everybody is just, they're just trying, you know, whether they're going to school, interning, you know, they're just trying to break their way into the music industry. So I was lucky where I had that, I could drop that name, you know, that bloodline that I really have, but majority of people, I mean, they don't have that. So how do they get in? You know, they just got to have balls, really. They just got to, you know, just be willing to do whatever it takes. Come up to you and blow up your phone, but not be too annoying. Like, there's a balance. Like, you have to know that balance. There's that balance where it's like,
right.
I like when someone's all over me and calling me, because I know, wow, like most people don't do that. But if they're doing it too often, too much, too hard, then I get turned off immediately. So there's like that fine line of how to get your foot in the door. Like, you don't want to be annoying, you don't want to be a bug, but you don't also want to be a lame or lazy. So you just got to find that medium. I mean, the guy that I have working for me right now, Nick, he graduated from CSUN with a master's degree. And he started off as my intern out of graduating with a master's degree. And someone called me and was friends with him and said, hey, you should check this guy out. And the reason I checked him out is because I was like, wow, this dude has a master's degree in music business. Okay, I barely graduated from high school. So this guy must know something that I don't know if he graduated with a business degree, master's in music.
Right.
But the reality is he doesn't know jack shit if he hasn't put his time in yet and been in the streets, you know, but just been in the middle of all of this shit that we deal with in the music industry. But at least I knew that he had discipline. The one thing I knew is he must have had discipline. If he was willing to go to school and put in 2 years and another 2 years to get his master's, and it was for the music business. So I kind of respected that a little, you know, and I gave him a shot. And sure enough, he knew nothing about the music industry except for what he learned in the books. But now he's actually in the streets. He's, you know, he's putting all his stuff that he learned in school in good use over here. And, you know, I respect anybody that has an education, you know, because I never had one.
Well, and he put in the time and he kept showing up.
He put in the time, you know, kept showing up. My friend, Shad Brandon, I love Shad. He always told me the story that he worked for Peter Morden when Peter Morden first opened up the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas. And I mean, me and Shad were boys. So when the Hard Rock first opened up, man, did we have a good time. I went to every party, every event. When Babies was the first club in Vegas at the Hard Rock. Okay, you guys remember Babies? So anyway, so Shad meets this guy one day. I forgot where it was, like driving down the street or whatever. And they just hit it off. And he says, hey, you know, can I come work for you? And he didn't even know what he really did. The guy says, well, yeah, you want to come work for me? Come meet me at my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. He's like, okay, cool. So Shad shows up, not knowing who Peter Morden is or anything. Peter Morden is one of the biggest restaurateurs, hotel guys of all time. So Shad shows up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's no Peter Morden. And he stays 10 o'clock in the morning. There's no Peter Morden. Now, finally at 10 o'clock, the assistant opens up the office door. So for the first hour, Shad was standing outside the door. Now the lady opens up the door. He goes and sits inside. She says, who are you here to see? He says, I'm here to see Peter. He says, please take a seat. 11 o'clock shows up. No Peter. 12 o'clock, no Peter. 1 o'clock, Peter shows up. And Peter says to Shad, he's like, well, what are you doing here? He's like, well, you told me to meet you here at 9 o'clock in the morning. He's like, yeah, but it's 1 o'clock. He's like, do you know how many people that have come up to me and said they want to work for me? And I tell everybody the same thing. Come to my office at 9 o'clock. Well, you're the only one that actually stayed.
Right.
You actually stayed. All right, you're hired.
Yeah.
And he got the job just because he stayed.
Right.
And just sometimes you just have to have the patience and the willingness just to sit down and just wait. And, you know, good things come to those who wait. and sure enough, that kick-started his amazing career that he still has to this day, because he waited 4 lousy hours for this major mogul to show up, you know?
Well, and that's waiting. Some people don't even show up at 9 when they're supposed to. Some people never show up. That's what's crazy is you would think that it would be simple to just show up on time and show some initiative. And
well, those people aren't going anywhere really, probably,
Right.
you know?
right.
I mean, like I tell people, I tell everybody that works for me, I paid my dues. I literally worked 20 hours a day. I would fall asleep at my office at 4 o'clock in the morning, wake up at 8 o'clock on my couch and get right back on the desk and start working more. I mean, like literally just to get, you know, and back in the days, we didn't have computers. We had fax machines. I used to have to fax people all night long in Europe, overseas, you know, just to pitch in my tours before we had emails, before we had computers, all that stuff. You really had to work. Now you guys are lucky. You guys got computers, emails.
Yeah, you can work from anywhere now.
Yeah, you can work from anywhere.
So they say you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Who are your 5 people? I know Steve Sprite's in here. He's probably one of them. But who are your 5?
That I spend the most time with?
Yeah.
Let's say my wife, my brother, Steve Sprite, Eric Abel. Who's the 5th? Who else do I hang out with? I don't know.
You do have a close circle.
I have a I got 1,000 acquaintances, a handful of friends. I've never been that person that ever claimed that I'm popular and I know everybody. I know a lot of people. I'm not friends with a lot of people, but I keep my circle very, very tight. Just, you know, I got walls up at all times, you know, because how I grew up and just growing up. And all my friends that I have today are my friends. Like my close friends are friends pre-Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You have a lot of, like, your close friends are childhood friends.
All my close friends are childhood friends.
Which not a lot of people can say.
Yeah, because I feel like as soon as Guns popped, everybody wanted to be my friend. So I just shut it all down. And, like, I just didn't trust anybody. And the only ones I trusted were the friends that I had before Guns N' Roses. Oh, yeah, top 5. Steve Lobel, maybe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Let me shout out Steve Lobel, A to Z Entertainment, my hip-hop mentor.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Do you think it's important to surround yourself with people who inspire you?
Yeah, I think if you're the smartest one in the room, then run. Because you always want to learn something new every day. I mean, I like to be a sponge and just absorb as much information. I pride myself on never being a know-it-all and always being open-minded. Even though I'm the boss, I still don't ever look at myself like I'm the boss, because I like to look at myself as I'm no better or no different than anybody else. Like, we're all equal. We all bleed red. Like, no one's better than anybody. And someone, even the bum on the street, I could learn from. I'm sure he has some kind of knowledge for me if I was just to listen and pay attention.
I mean, I think from the outside looking in, and just knowing you have had one of the most incredible lives of anyone I've known. Your stories could go on for years, basically. But with all the highs comes a lot of lows, too. So can you take us to a rock bottom place where you felt like giving up, but you got through it? And what did you do to get through it?
So my rock bottom came, I want to say, in 2010. Maybe 2008, 2009. Anyways, you know, I just went through these ups and downs. I had my company, and me and Bone, we parted ways for a little while, and I had this office on Cahuenga, Adler Entertainment. It was me and Mike Nunnery, Daquan Brown, Tyrese. We were all working together. Tyrese was our partner. We just put together TGT. We were touring Tyrese more than he's ever toured before. The money was coming in. And then just all of a sudden, the shit just crumbled out of nowhere. Just between like all the partners and everything. And I walked away. Mike moved out to Florida. Daquan got a studio going. We stopped working with Tyrese. You know, and I really, really loved working with Tyrese. That was a really good time in my career, I thought. And I ended up moving back to the Valley. I got this little apartment in the Valley. I was living in Hollywood at the time, and I just got back in trouble, like doing things I should not be doing. You know, smoking a little too much, let's say, and I hit rock bottom. Like, I blew through all my bread. I was all alone. I felt like I had no one to turn to. And I came up with this brilliant idea. My old boss at the time, Dave Kirby, at TKO, he had a company called TKO. He left the agency group, started his own company called TKO. And I said, I reached out to Dave. And I told Dave, I said, listen, man, I'm really messed up. I can't even pay my rent. I got rent due in a couple days. My refrigerator is empty. I'm just really going through it, man. And I really, really need some help. Please, can you help me out? He says, come into my office tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I went into his office the next day. And he looked at me. He could tell I looked like shit. You know, I was skinny. You know, my nose was running. I just did not look good. My eyes were just bulging or bloodshot, whatever it was. It was just not a good scene. And he says, Jamie, he says, if you promise that you stop doing what you're doing right now and you get help that you need, I'll do whatever you ask, whatever you need from me. I said, Dave, please, man, I promise if you help me out, I'll never party again. I'll never do any of this shit. I'll change my whole life. I can't go on like this anymore. You know, I was probably like 34, 35 at the time. It was just time to grow up, you know. And sure enough, I walked out of the office. He gave me a check because he didn't want to give me cash because he didn't want me blowing on anything. He gave me a check for my rent, and I think he gave me like $100 to go buy some food. And I said, Dave, give me a few days. give me a week. Just let me dry out, and let me start working next week. And he agreed to hire me. He says, if I dry out, if I pull my head out of my ass, he'll give me a job. And sure enough, the next day, like that day, I drove to I started going to the one of those healthy spots every single day and getting all these juices and these vitamins and these shots, like these healthy shots and B12. And for a whole week, I just totally stayed sober. I was going to meetings and just turned my whole life around right then and there, man, because he gave me an opportunity. He gave me another chance. I'm not going to say it was my second chance or my third chance, because I've had at least a dozen chances in life. But he gave me another chance. And and sure enough, I did not take advantage of that opportunity. And from that point on, my whole life completely changed. All the way to this day, I've never reverted backwards, because I felt like I always made that promise to Dave that I would turn my life around and do better if he just helped me out. And I feel like, you know, all these years later, I'm married now, and I have a beautiful baby. I have this amazing business with amazing people around me and relationships, you know, and I attribute it all to, you know, like Dave Kirby really helping me at my bottom. So that was definitely my lowest point in my life, you know. But I had somebody there in this industry that helped me out, and Kirby ended up passing away a couple years later, and it was such an honor because at his like, not his funeral, at his memorial, we had a memorial for him. And there was 3 people that gave a eulogy, and they asked me to be one of them. And I always feel like you know, Dave hung on and was there for so many people, but you know, he was there for me as well, you know. And I always felt very special and honored that he looked out for me.
Well, what's amazing is I feel like in getting to know you and getting to know people around you, that you've played that same role for a lot of people, where I can't even remember how many people have said Jamie saved my life.
Well, it's funny because when I was telling you the story just now, I kept thinking, like, that's what I turned out to be. The same guy that Dave was, because that was my example. So that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy for other people that were like me in that situation. I want to pull others out of the hole.
Right.
Because there was somebody for me. Like wow. This is a crazy story, but Alex Guerrero, a very close friend of mine, I was talking to this guy. This is right around that time when I was going rock bottom. This is right before I even went to Kirby to ask him for help. I made a list of all these names of people that I had in my life and for how many years. So I had like 20 names on there that I had in my life for 10 years plus, 30 names in my life that I've had for 20 years plus. And I had all these names on this list because at this point I felt like I was all alone. I felt like I had nobody. So I wanted to do some inventory on everything, and I put everyone's name. I looked through my phone books, whatever, and put down all these people's names. And sure enough, I had all these names on this list, and all these people I've known for so many years. And every one of these people was just one phone call away. They would be there for me. But I didn't see that this time. I was just isolated and be by myself. But I told Alex this story about all these names I have and all these people on my list. He says to me, he says, well, that's great, Jamie, that you have all these people on your list. But how many people have you on their list? He says, why don't you start living your life that you're on their list and they could call you? And it was just so profound for me because it's like, that's cool if I have this list with all these people.
But selfish, right?
Yeah, but am I on their list?
That's incredible.
Am I like? Can they depend on me? Can they rely on me? No. At that point, no, they couldn't. But I'll tell you, fast forward to 2017, man, I guarantee you, I'm on a lot of people's lists right now, and I'm grateful to be that person that I am today.
Yeah. I mean, and you helped my life out a lot.
Good.
Can you tell the story of how we met?
Let's see. The story me and Eric Gable met everything in my life all comes back to God. It's all God shots. It has nothing to do with me. And this is another prime example. Like, why is it that anytime anybody calls me or tells me that someone's out there trying to book Bone Thugs and Harmony or Lazy Bone or any solo members, I always get a phone call from somebody saying someone's trying to do it. And what do I always do? I always call that person. I flip out. I just immediately flip. Why the hell are you calling? No one told you to call this person, da-da-da. Well, I get a call, someone telling me that this guy by the name of Eric Gable that works for this other guy named Stephen Brush, New York.
Well, you didn't even know at the time who I worked for. I
didn't know?
No, you asked me.
Oh, okay, so I didn't even know. I just heard this guy, Eric Gable, is trying to book a couple members of Bone Thugs. And I called him up. I said, hey, this is Jamie Adler. I'm the agent for Bone. What's going on? I heard you're booking a couple guys. But I didn't come at him like in a hard, aggressive way. I just wanted to shoot the shit and just see what was going on. That's how I came across to the guy, I think, right?
Yeah.
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 Like, I wasn't an asshole or anything. So we started talking, and just immediately, for some reason, I just liked the guy from the jump. And I didn't want to abuse him and yell at him and flip out on him because he's like stepping on my toes. So basically, I really, really liked the guy from the jump. And the conversation ended by saying, hey, if you want to help me out, maybe we could figure out to work together on some stuff. But just, let's just talk about it. Let's just figure out. I can't have you out there just soliciting my group.
Well, and it was only part of your group because I didn't know your master plan was to get everyone back together, which you explained to me on that conversation.
Right, because it's always all over the place. But at this point,
right. But you were like, I don't want to split this group up.
I don't want to. Right, I don't want to split. I don't want to split the guys up and have 3 different Bone Thugs running around the country.
Right.
But if I would have came at you aggressively or normally how I would have, you would have hung up the phone. I would have had you scared shitless out of your pants, threatening to have Pistol Pete come up to your office or some shit. Who knows what it would have been. But I didn't come at you like that. And fast forward like 5 years later, we're killing it together.
Yeah.
So it shows it's all how you talk to people and it's and giving others a chance, and not assuming. You should never assume anything. So you ended up being a really great guy, an awesome agent, and a complete asset to what I'm doing right now in my life. And it all worked out. And sure enough, you ended up leaving that other guy and you come join forces with Adler. And now you really have Bone Thugs among all these other groups,
Yeah, and I think it's not just about necessarily the fact that you were able to come at me in a calm way, but it's also speaks to the fact that you don't take everyone as like, I need to be competitive with this other agent. Because as we see, you work with other agents and you don't just automatically get defensive or feel like possessive, like that's my group, no one can touch them.
Yeah,
like,
no.
If another agent comes to you and says, I have an offer for you for Bone Thugs and Harmony or DJ Quik or whoever, you're willing to listen.
Yeah, no, listen. I was the guy that could always play in the sandbox with all the kids. Okay? I got along with everybody. It doesn't matter what color, what race, creed. It doesn't matter. I love the world. I've always been like that ever since I was a little kid. So if somebody has an opportunity for me, I'm willing to listen and hear it out. I am not a selfish person. Now, a lot of these agents in this music industry, they were beat up, they were bullied, they're insecure. So they get really possessive and insecure if you want to book one of their artists. The reality is we should all be working with each other, all helping each other out, and all making money together.
Right.
No reason to ever be selfish.
And that's the culture at the music group. I mean, everyone that we work with is very forthcoming. Nobody's like holding on to their connections. We help each other out. We're not competitive with each other. We just want everything to grow together, and that's important. But that comes from your mindset.
You should use my last quote as like the blurb of this whole thing. We should spread that message out there. Get the word out. Like, let's all work with each other and help each other out instead of like always fighting and stepping on each other's toes and not returning emails and not returning calls and thinking you're cocky and you're better than everybody else and your shit don't stink. That's just not the way to do it. Let's all like be kind to each other. Let's all help each other. Let's benefit from each other. No reason to be selfish.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point to move on to the next part. You cool for a little bit more?
Nah, I'm done.
You're done?
All right, come on.
All right. Well, we've talked about routines and how important that is to you.
What time's Bill showing up? Bill Burr.
I don't know.
Okay.
He's not here, so we're going to keep going.
Okay.
So we talked about your habits and just how important that is to you to keep, like, kind of have a schedule that you stick with. What are some of those habits and how do they help your productivity?
A part of my ADD, I was still thinking about getting kidnapped in New York and what that guy's name was. You got to repeat that question.
All right. So you have some habits that help your productivity, right? Things like yoga, things like that, eating healthy. I'm not going to answer the question for you, but what are some of those things and why are they so important to get you through the day?
Listen, I think health is wealth. Okay, if you're not healthy, you have nothing going on. Okay, the most important thing before money, business is taking care of you. Me personally, when I'm really, really in it, I'm doing yoga every day. I'm doing boot camp every day. I'm eating greens. I'm drinking. Those healthy. What do you call those? Those brain. It's something called Brain On. It's these little. It's these little green drink from It's like algae. from Oregon. It's called Brain On. I drink that. I mean, I'm in a routine. I'm best. Me personally, I'm best in a routine. I'm best that when I'm up at 7 a.m. I'm at Bikram Yoga from 7:30 to 8. At 9 o'clock, I'm at the Rainbow. That's the place where it has these healthy shakes. It's right in Marina Del Rey.
Not the Rainbow Room.
Not the Rainbow Bar and Grill. There's the Rainbow, the healthy spot in the Santa Monica area. And then at 10 o'clock, I'm in the gym lifting from 10 to 11, at the office by 11:30, working in the office till 3 so I don't get caught off in traffic, go back to the marina where I live, and then enjoy the rest of the night with my beautiful wife. And then in the middle of all that, I'm on the phone, on the cell phone, closing deals, making shit happen. But first and foremost, I try to put me in front of everything because that's the only way I'm going to win. And, that's the only way I'm going to stay healthy, stay clean, and get shit done.
Right. So if you're younger and you haven't gotten to the point where you have that freedom yet, how do you create that balance of healthiness but also working hard? Because you can't go into the office for 4 or 5 hours when you're a young kid.
No, you have. Listen, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, there is no balance. It's just straight work. Nowadays, you have the luxury where, gyms are open 24 hours a day. There's a lot of vegan, healthy restaurants out there. I just think that living a healthy lifestyle equals having a successful career and a successful lifestyle. It's just important. That's just me. We're in entertainment. We're in rock and roll. We're in rap. There's weed. There's coke. There's drugs. There's debauchery. There's all of that. It's like there's all these distractions and all this sin around us. And it's the ones that that are the survivors that were able to withstand all that and turn their life around and get healthy and get serious on what's really important in life. Love, family, health. That's what's important.
Right. And that's what balances out the stress.
Yeah.
So what's the worst part of your job that no one would want to ever do?
Well, it's probably something that most people in my business don't do. And that's just being completely transparent and completely honest with everybody around you. Sometimes I literally have to get on the phone and yell at one of my clients because they're just too fucked up or something, and I could say shit because I was there. I've been there. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm being a hypocrite, and I turned my life around today. So I could actually get away with flipping out. But I think the hardest part is just being completely honest with rock stars. These people, these musicians, a lot of them are very, they have egos. They're not used to anybody telling them anything else but what they want to hear. I pride myself on not telling people what they want to hear. I pride myself on telling people what they need to hear.
What do you think's the best method of approaching someone who is all fucked up and is fucking their life up? Is it yelling at them?
It's definitely not yelling at them.
Okay.
And definitely do not approach them while they're fucked up.
Yes. Okay? Good pointer right there.
You got to get with them while they're in the morning when they're just waking up from their hangover. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's up to that individual. You can't tell anybody what to do or what you think they should do. You could give suggestions, your opinion, but at the end of the day, it's up to that individual. That goes for me. That goes for anybody. I love when my wife tries to tell me what to do.
Right.
What? I'm 42 years old. You're going to tell me what to do? But she's right, and I should probably do it. But because she's telling me what I should do, I'm going to do the opposite. And that's how a lot of people are.
Yeah. So when you're faced with a daunting task that seems really big and scary to have to deal with, how do you go about it?
Pray. Pray. Reach out. Talk to a couple people. Ask their advice. Ask their opinions. And pray some more. Pray. That's the answer.
In general, why do you think so many people are scared to take action? Because, and just to premise this, I feel like you're someone who takes a lot of risks, and you pride yourself on that. I think that's how you've gotten where you are. Why are so many people afraid to take risks?
Because we're not used to taking risks. The majority, you're not born with taking risks. You're not people are not normally raised to learn how to take risks. I think I grew up with my dad. He was a risk taker. He was taking me to Vegas shooting craps when I was 15 years old, my fake ID. That's a risk, me, I just put all faith in God's hands, and I just don't give a shit. It's like the worst thing someone's going to say is no.
Right.
You know, so you just be willing to do whatever it takes. You got to take risks. That's why in order to become a millionaire or billionaire, you can only do that by taking risks. If you work at a company, if you draw a salary for the rest of your life, chances are you're not going to be a multimillionaire because you didn't take a risks.
So speaking of millionaires or billionaires, you've been around a lot of successful people in your life. Who would you say is the most successful, and what attributes do they have that you look up to?
I don't know, because I was going to say most of the successful people are normally the miserable people, you know?
Yeah, well, successful financially doesn't necessarily mean successful all around.
Yeah, money definitely does not buy happiness. Some of the most miserable people I've ever met were the richest people I've ever met. When I had the most amount of money I ever had in my life, I was the most depressed and miserable I ever was in my life. It's when I lost everything that I started learning the appreciation for happiness. And it does not lie in money or success. It lies within. You know, like
that brings up a good question. Do you think that you can really appreciate your financial success or happiness if you're born with that and never go through any downtimes in your life?
Only if you pay your own dues. You have to like pave your own way. You have to form your own identity. Or if you don't do any of that, then you're never going to have happiness. You know, you're always going to be living off of, daddy's money, or, I feel like if you come from a very successful family, I think that's incredible, and you should be gracious and grateful, but you should also like build your own identity and try to find your own success, and you don't have to ever try to compete. Like, someone was asking me, do I feel like I've made it compared to how my brother or this and that? And I was just like, first of all, I don't know anybody that sold more records than my brother, because he literally holds the record for the most albums sold of all time on a debut rock record.
Right.
So not even the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, Nirvana, Bon Jovi, nobody can compete with that. Okay? He holds that record. That's a fact. So why would I ever try to compete with that? Like, do I feel like a loser because I've never sold 100 million records, but my brother did? No, that's my brother. I'm over here on my own mission. Yeah. Does my brother feel like a loser because he hasn't booked 5,000 shows? No, I've booked more shows this year than my brother played in his whole entire career, probably. But so it's not a competition thing. I don't like to ever try to compete, or I don't think anybody should ever try to, feel they're less than because this person's doing more. I want to encourage everybody. If that person's doing more than me, booking more shows, making more money, then more power to that guy. Shit, I salute you. I personally want to see everybody win. I don't ever judge myself against somebody else and compare. I think that only will make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that all comes from growth, but you touched on a couple key components of happiness, and gratitude's definitely one of them, and not comparing yourself to others is definitely another one.
Because
like, how can you be happy if you're just looking at everyone else's Instagram? Because everyone looks so happy on there. They're all on a yacht, on a plane. They're all eating the best food because they post the best versions of their lives.
Listen, perception is reality. Remember that. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, especially in our world.
If you don't believe me, go sit on an ayahuasca ceremony and then tell me what you think. Okay? Because you're going to see what it's really all about at that point.
Yeah.
And none of this shit matters. I'm sorry. None of this does. Like how many records you sold, how many cars you have. At the end of the day, we're all dying. It's all going to be over with real soon. We're only here for a short amount of time. So while you're here, live it up. Enjoy yourself. Do good. Help out others. Make a difference. And then you could elevate to the next level after that.
That's great. All right. I have a couple quick questions and we're out of here. Knowing everything you know now, you feel like following your passion is good advice?
I completely would tell anybody to always follow your heart. That's the most important thing. And always follow your intuition. If it feels good, then go for it. Don't ask somebody else, well, what do you think? Because that person might try to discourage you. Follow your heart, follow your dreams, follow your intuition, and everything will work out.
And what did your 21-year-old self do that you wouldn't be caught dead doing now?
Probably 3 chicks.
Okay. What did you think you couldn't live without back then, but now you realize wasn't so important?
Weed.
Okay. If you had to start again today without your network, but knowing everything you know, how would you make a living within 30 days?
Picking up the phone, booking shows.
You just build a brand new network.
Build a brand. It's a one phone call away.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that.
Yeah. That's another point. It's not just that promoters or venues need to book shows, but artists need shows. And there's artists that are established that are out there that could use help. And not just artists, but managers could use help.
I mean, I think what me and you do is we have a niche.
Right.
Which is so important in life. Because my mom always says, find a niche. Because you can go anywhere and work. Like, if you're not a mechanic, you could go to any town and do a tune-up on a car. You know, me personally, I don't even know how to change a fucking tire. But
me neither.
I think me and you will always be good in our life, whether we're booking shows for $5,000 a night or $50,000 a night. There's always going to be one artist out there that needs help booking a tour, and we could be that person that delivers a tour for them.
Exactly. All right, so if an evil dictator took over the world and they banned all art, but allowed everyone to keep one album and one book, what would you choose?
So wait, what did you say? If Trump takes over the country?
Yeah, someone like that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So next week, after Trump's taken over the country, which book and which album are you going to keep?
I'm going to keep Appetite for Destruction for my brother. And then I'm going to keep my mom's book, Sweet Child of Mine, so I can see pictures of my family and read about my family.
Good.
Shout out to my mom, Steven Adler. Sweet Child of Mine. Her book's out on Amazon right now. Go cop that.
And speaking of your family, one other quick question about your daughter, about Lonnie Mae.
Oh, yeah. My daughter. I got a daughter. Wow.
What's one thing they never taught you in school that you're going to make sure to teach her?
I mean, everything. Like, don't go where you don't belong. That's something my mom taught me that I like to pass on to her. Don't go where you don't belong. It sounds so simple, but it's so. If you live your life by living that, don't go where you don't belong, everything's gonna be okay. You just got to figure out what that means.
Yeah, I love that.
I was the type of kid. It's a true story. I remember I'm like 16, 17 years old. I grew up in the Valley. And my friends from Crespi, that was like an all-boys school. We would always hang out on the weekends. And one time they're like, hey, we're going to go play mailbox baseball. Which is, you hang your body out the car window with the baseball and you start hitting mailboxes.
I remember that.
Now this is a felony. This is a full-on fucking felony. So I told these idiots, who I'm still friends with to this day, these stupid morons for doing this. I told these guys, drop me off right here at the Starbucks, right on Topanga and Ventura. It's still there, the Starbucks. I drove by there the other day. I said, you idiots, drop me off right here while you guys play your dumb game and then come back and get me. And they went up in the hills, up off of, north of Topanga, Ventura up there, and they just played their little baseball, committed all these felonies. And then when they were done, they came back down and they picked me up and I got back in the car and I left with these guys. Well, they were like, you're a pussy, da-da-da. But in the back of my head, it just didn't feel right to go commit these felonies because my mom always telling me, don't go where you don't belong. And I did not feel like I belonged in that car that night. And, nothing ever happened to these guys. But at least I didn't put myself in that situation in case something did happen. And I could sit here 42 years later and claim I've never been arrested. Not one time have I ever been booked. I was handcuffed one time in the back of the cop car, and I said, and this is in West Hollywood, and I was about to get arrested and go down to the station. And I remembered my good friend Michael Magliari, who owns the Rainbow and the whiskey. He says, Jamie, if you ever have any problems in West Hollywood, just tell the cops who you are. Just say you're Jamie Adler, Rainbow Roxy Whiskey. And I never even asked him any questions. But I remembered sitting in the back of the cop car, high off my ass, about to go to jail in handcuffs. And it dawned on me while I was there in the back of the cop car what I'm supposed to say. And I said, officer, don't you see? Look at my ID. I'm Jamie Adler, Rainbow Roxy Whiskey. And they said, oh, Mr. Adler.
Lou Adler's son?
Yeah, Mr. Adler, why didn't you just say something? And they pulled me out of the cop car, and they apologized. And they gave me back my driver's license, and I was on my way back to the Rainbow. And that was the closest I've ever been to getting arrested. But once again, God was looking over me, and my last name got me out of that fucking mess. And that's just one more amazing story that I have.
God in your last name.
Isn't that crazy? It's a true story. I mean, that's real. I got witnesses for all my stories. But that was... So I should definitely not... I should not have been there, so don't go where you don't belong. But 99% of the time, that got me out of any messes I was in.
There you go. I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. We've been working together for, almost 5 years now, probably?
Yeah.
What's the one thing you'd like to see me improve in the next year?
The one thing I'd like to see you improve in is, let's just say you booked 300 shows this year. I'll go book 600 next year.
All right. That's already the plan.
That's it.
We're good.
Other than that, you're perfect.
All right. Appreciate it. If you could send a 140 character tweet that everyone in the world would see right now, what would it say?
I love you all.
Let's wrap it up there. Where can people find you online?
Instagram at Worldwide Adler. That's my main thing. Just Instagram at Worldwide.
You can see Jamie
Adler.
dancing around on stage behind Bone Thugs and Harmony and by the DJ booth on a DJ Quik show.
Hey, you can find me anywhere.
You'll find him all over the world. He's Worldwide Adler.
I'm worldwide, baby.
He's traveling back to Australia tonight.
Yo, shout out to Eugene who came up with at Worldwide Adler. Shout out to my mom, my dad, rest in peace, Big Mel, my brother Steven, Steve Lobel, Todd Singerman, Dave Kirby. I love you all. You guys are responsible for the man I am today in the music industry. And I'm just filled with gratitude, man. That's it. Bottom line. Shout out to my beautiful wife, Rebecca, my beautiful daughter, Lonnie Mae. God, Daddy's coming home tonight.
So exciting. Thanks so much for taking the time. We used up half the workday, so.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Peace, you dick.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Indie Playbook. Subscribe on the podcast app, Stitcher, tune in, wherever you can find us online. Thanks again. Peace.